Okay, so I'm going to be replacing some water filters today. And these filters are to take out things like PFAS and other contaminants. And while they don't do 100% of the job, they do some of the job, and well, that's just kind of peace of mind. But that got me thinking last night. What impact does PFAS and other forever chemicals have on things like multiple sclerosis? So I got up and started doing some research. And what I discovered is absolutely bonkers, and it is not what you expect, I guarantee it. Let's get going.
I'm Cliff, and this is Life with MS, or Life with Multiple Sclerosis, a little vlog that I started a number of years ago to talk about my journey and has grown into a community of great people living with multiple sclerosis, sharing knowledge. And today I have an absolutely bonkers McGee crazy study I found, and you're not going to believe the outcome. It is insane. So like the video showed, I was changing the water filters on the refrigerator, and I wanted to know, do PFAS and other forever chemical elements have an impact on multiple sclerosis? We know from research over the years that they have an impact on different types of autoimmune disorders, but what about multiple sclerosis specifically? And that's what I wanted to know. So I dug into the research last night. And this is just crazy. So let's set the stage. Our first character is polyfluoroalkyl. Now, he is a member of the PFAS family and isn't particularly nice on the human anatomy. But he's got a catchy name. Oh, polyfluoroalkyl. Oh, aren't you cute, polyfluoroalkyl? But you could also be really mad at him. Polyfluoroalkyl, you go to your room. However, to simplify things, we've just nicknamed him Forever Chemicals. And it also makes him sound kind of more like a jerk. Or an uninvited house guest that shows up, makes a total mess, and just refuses to leave. That would be our friend, polyfluoroalkyl. And where can we find our friend? Well, he's on nonstick pans to begin with, waterproof jackets, food packaging, and even a lot of cosmetics. And because he's so tough, he hangs around in the environment and also in us. Ew. Okay, to continue on with our story, now we're going to introduce our autoimmune diseases because they also play a part in this, and it just wouldn't be the same without them. And because this is an MS channel and all of you are pretty darn smart from what I derive in the comments, I don't really need to get into the mechanics of multiple sclerosis and all the intricacies and nuances of it. But know that it plays a part in this story. And there's also things like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. And what's interesting about what I'm about to tell you is that it's not the same story for three different types of autoimmune diseases. In fact, it varies greatly. And generally, PFASs are not considered a health food. Shocker, I know, right? And one of the most consistent findings that we have is that they reduce the efficacy of vaccines because, well, they could be suppressing the immune system that way. And this is especially true in kids. And there's mounting evidence that these chemicals could be associated with things like lupus, ulcerative colitis, and rheumatoid arthritis. And the study I'm about to show you outlines, can you have too little or too much of PFAS and other forever chemicals when you have multiple sclerosis? So the picture forming is PFAS is generally bad for the immune system. And with that assumption, we can all safely assume logically that pouring PFAS on an immune system that has MS in it would be just adding gasoline to the MS fire. Au contraire, mein frère, we might be wrong thinking that. And here's the plot twist. And this just blew my mind. It was like, what? But it totally makes sense in a weird way. So now for the study. It was a pretty large and robust Swedish study, which looked closely at PFAS and the MS connection. And what they found was unexpected. Cue Twilight Zone music, copyright version. And the first question they asked was, being exposed to PFAS, does this actually increase the probability of developing multiple sclerosis? And for things like PFAS, PFOA, which is PFOA, and PFAS, PFOS, the answer was not really. There was no strong link there. Interestingly, though, some other persistent chemicals, and I'm going to read it here, called OH-PCBs, which are cousins to the banned PCBs, did show a link with an increased risk of developing multiple sclerosis. So for MS onset, PFAS got the not guilty, but OPCBs are still under investigation, and we're going to get you, OPCBs. We know you did it. And then the research question turned, and it looked at people that already had MS, and it asked the question, is it affecting them? And sit down for this one because this is crazy, and click subscribe if you don't mind, if you're into this type of content. Like and share as well because sharing is caring, and this community is awesome. We're doing great things. So what happened? Are you sitting? I'm waiting. Okay. You've sat down. I like that. Keep your back straight. Good circulation. Yes. What the researchers found, and I'm going to read it here because I don't want to get it wrong. They found higher blood levels of certain PFAS, specifically PFOA and PFOS, and another one called PFDA, associated with dun 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 dun. Get this, slower disability progression. What? How is that possible? Let's think about this for a second. Let's use some logic, engineer's logic. If we have something that suppresses the immune system because it's toxic to it, and we have a disease like MS that's a hyperactive immune system that's basically destroying our bodies, what's happening here? Basically, these PFASs are disrupting an already hyperactive immune system and suppressing it in its own little way, kind of like our DMTs. So the very chemicals known for their immune disrupting tendencies, like forever chemicals we are all trying to avoid, were linked to a less severe course of MS in this study. This is bonkers. And of course, this probably made the scientists go out and double, triple, and quadruple check their work while also having a heavy alcoholic beverage at the end of the day because they're like, this is crazy. Now, it also has to be noted that while it might be suppressing multiple sclerosis, these chemicals do a lot of other harm. So while we're fixing one hole, we might be making more in the boat. I'm going to read this paragraph word for word because I think it's said really well. The researchers themselves suggested that maybe, just maybe, in a very specific and complex environment of MS, these PFAS could be acting like an overall immunosuppressive. Many MS treatments actually work by tamping down the immune system to stop it from attacking the myelin. Could it be that these PFAS are completely accidentally and for all the wrong reasons having a somewhat similar effect, albeit clumsy effect on MS patients? So let's take a look at part of the study real quick because you kind of have to see it in writing. We'll just flip on over here and of course we have a nice acknowledgement for the Swedish Neuro Registries. This study was funded by the Swedish Research Council 2021, but wasn't released until 2025. So this is very new information. All right, now let's go up to our progression. And it says these inverse associations concerning disease progression and worsening have not been observed in MS or other autoimmune diseases. These findings made herein suggest that the PFAS may suppress the immune system in MS, resulting in a slower disease progression and lower risk of disability worsening. And of course, all these articles that I've researched and all these research papers that I've researched will be linked in the description below. I highly encourage you, if you're curious about this, to go take a look at them because they're really interesting. But now it's time for a big disclaimer, and this is really important. This doesn't mean go out and drink all the water you can and expose yourself to as many PFAS. Like if I find you in your garage eating PCBs and stuff, it's just not going to be good. So PFAS by no means are good for us. And nobody with MS should go out and seek PFAS. And of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. I'm just an armchair bald dude on YouTube that likes to do research about MS. But I have to say that maybe intentionally seeking out PFAS to consume to help with MS is probably a really bad idea. Consult your doctor. This is definitely just a larger part of the scientific puzzle and asks a lot more questions than it actually answers. And don't think of it as a health tip, but actually a fascinating discovery. And one of the things we know about PFAS, which could either help or hinder this process, is basically PFAS are able to cross that really strong barrier in your brain called the blood-brain barrier. And if those PFAS could theoretically get past that blood-brain barrier and interact with the microglia in the brain, which are part of the MS inflammation process, maybe, just maybe, they're going to help or hinder. Who knows? There's still a lot of research to be done here, but this is fascinating. So more research is needed on how this may be stopping MS progression or slowing MS progression, and there's all kinds of theories. And that could be the multi-billion-dollar question at play here, and could actually be responsible for funding more research. Right now, the answer is, we're not sure. But there are some very loose theories on cytokine profiles. Those are the little chemical messengers in the nervous system. I talked about those in a previous episode. Or perhaps these PFAS are just influencing and changing the immune cells themselves, like the T cells and the B cells. We don't know. The overall mechanisms are still as elusive as Trump's 2017 tax returns, which, by the way, we've never seen. But moving forward, what's probably going to happen, and you've heard me talk about this before, they have a mouse model of MS where they test a lot of things before they dump them into humans. And I think just based on general knowledge that this research is going to move into the mouse model of MS called EAE, and we're going to see some some positive effects and also some negative effects. But regardless, the research is new, and this is very interesting. And it's important to note that there's a huge research gap currently. I mean, you could fit the Death Star in it between MS and PFAS. So as I read through this research report while I talk to you, I'll say, well, it's the classic science conclusion. More research is needed, especially to understand this MS progression puzzle. Is it a fluke? Is this genuine, albeit bizarre, biological mechanism at play? We don't know. We need to dig into this and find out more. So don't be surprised if you start hearing studies about this happening. But do be surprised if it happens in the United States, because currently we have a huge talent exodus going to other countries where they have funding for MS research. And I guess the biggest takeaway from this is we definitely need less PFAS in our life, and finding these scientific outliers are very hopeful and fun and interesting. But the consumption and the production of PFAS is ultimately, I think, are going to do more harm than good, though that remains to be seen. Just logic would tell us that. And lastly, I know I'll be keeping my eye on my product labels, filtering my water to a reasonable extent, not taking all the good minerals out of it, but hopefully getting a lot of the crap out of it. And we'll keep fighting the good fight with multiple sclerosis. So let me know, is this type of research interesting to you? Maybe I'm just the outlier nerd who thinks this is just super cool, but I just find this stuff fascinating. Again, this is coming out almost daily at this point with all kinds of new research. You all are great. I appreciate you all. Keep the great comments coming. I'm Cliff. This is Life with MS. And until tomorrow, I'm out.